think it's bad. Me no know what them a talk about. When them say think it's mad. When everywhere in the world have problem, everywhere need God. Tell them easy no man. From you love think it's bad. Full time if you big up me own, yeah. Big up me home. Me no want hear nothing about politics. Right you now I leave that alone. And now me woman me ice enough. Oje with the ital rice enough. By the time come everybody nice enough. You know them one zone. Me no know about you, but me no think it's bad. Me no know what them a talk about. When them say think it's mad. When everywhere in the world have problem, everywhere need God. Tell them easy no man. From you love think it's bad.
All right, welcome back to Island Tea with your faves, Kevon and Amali. And we've just been joined by the Honorable Dr. Denzil Llewellyn Douglas, former PM, leader of the opposition, and leader of the St. Nevis Labour Party. And he's joining us as a part of a series of conversations with surrounding independence, with folks who have contributed significantly to, the building of our great nation, St. Kitts and Nevis. Welcome, Dr. Hoyo.
Thank you for having me. I'm fine. I said thank you for having me. Good morning to all of your listeners, and I'm feeling fine.
Excellent. You look so. You look young and refreshed.
And man came in here with such a springing in step.
Step. Well, first of all, thank you for taking time out of your schedule to, sit with us, especially on such short notice. It is, tremendously appreciated. But let's jump straight into it. Usually the first question we ask our guests is to tell us a bit about yourselves for people who don't know you, but we don't have to do that.
Everyone should know about me.
And if they don't, then something is extremely wrong.
Maybe there's something that we should know that we don't.
Huh?
Maybe there's something that we should know that we don't.
Possibly. So let's skip that question and jump into telling us about the first time you got involved in politics in St. Kitts and Nevis, and around that time, who were the persons who were involved at the time that inspired you to, because obviously you were in medicine first.
Yes.
And then you decided to jump into the ring.
Yes.
So what, if you can, drift back to that moment when you decided to put down the what you call it, the stethoscope?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to take up the, I don't know what the symbol is for politics. And take up the finger.
Well, for me, it's the hand.
The hand.
The hand, yes, the hand. And take up the hand. So if you can reminisce on that moment for a second.
Actually, I was somewhat involved in politics before I went off to university to do medicine. In fact, when I left in 1979, I was sitting on the national executive of the Labour Party to represent the Young Labour Organization. And then I went off, same year, and came back eventually back in 1996. Finished, sorry, not
86.
86.
Yeah.
Finished my medicine in 1984, and then had 2 years internship and came back eventually in 1986. And then I got involved in the politics actively, because in 1987, at the party conference in May, National Annual Conference, I was elected the deputy chairman of our party.
Okay.
And so it's from there, really, I would say, that my career in politics began. I was influenced by a number of things. There were young people who were, like me, wanted to be actively involved. The party, of course, was led then by Sir Llewellyn, who had succeeded Sir Paul Southwell, who had in turn succeeded Sir Robert Llewellyn Bradshaw.
Okay.
So in quick succession, the party formed itself with very mature senior people. And then we needed young people. Henry Brown, Dr. Henry Brown was at that time part of the team, Halvor Hendrickson and those guys. And so I was encouraged to join that new team. You had James Buchanan and people like those who were the younger part of the team. And so I became involved, having been attracted to the fold by these young guys. And of course, this is my party. It's what was happening to the party. It was going through a period of change. Of course, it was in opposition, and I thought I could make a contribution.
Okay, brilliant. I'm not sure if most of our listeners would know this, but you know, Robert Bradshaw, our former leader, is your godfather. Was your godfather?
Well, no, in Calypso they say he's my god. He's really my cousin, second cousin.
Oh. I tell you so.
Yes. Yeah.
And he was a blood relative.
Yeah, he is.
So
my grandmother was his aunt, actually.
Oh, okay.
And of course, his father would have been my great uncle.
Okay. Well, he was way before any of us in his time.
Right.
So can you reflect on the kind of relationship that you and Mr. Bradshaw had, you know, growing up and of course coming into the fold of the party and playing an active role?
I think that the relationship would have influenced me very, very greatly.
Okay.
When I was a young boy, teenager, I was part of the 4-H organization. And we had annual conventions at Easter time. And so ministers of government frequently would come to speak to us on that public holiday. And Bradshaw was one of those, Sir Robert, I should say, forgive me, was one of those guys who...
It's fine, it's a casual show.
Right,
Yes.
who I saw frequently, and on many occasions I had the opportunity to give the vote of thanks for him in particular after he would have finished speaking to us. And this is because back at age 12, when I left the primary school in St. Paul's and came to the grammar school, in those days you had to do an entrance examination to come to grammar school, to come to high school from a school in the country like St. Paul's Primary School. And so I was very lucky to have won his scholarship.
Oh, okay.
You see, back in 1965, well, I guess my age is well known, so. In 65, age 12, I won the scholarship to go to the grammar school. And so my report actually went to him before it came to my father. My school report, yes. So we knew each other in that way, because I would go to his wife's business place on Church Street, Millie Bradshaw, and I would collect the report from there to take to my home after he would have seen it from the grammar school. So we had that kind of relationship. And as I said, having seen him and hearing him, apart from at home, in St. Paul's, now in a public setting, especially at conventions, it gave me a kind of pull, which today I have not regretted.
Okay, brilliant. So when you entered politics, so can you recall what year that was? When you entered it fully?
Elected? Elected in
yeah.
1989.
1989.
Yeah, March 1989.
So, wow. That was a month before I was born.
I was just a wee babe.
Yeah, a wee babe.
So I know tribute to some extent.
Yeah. For a very long time, you know, when I thought the Prime Minister, there was only one man.
There was only one person.
That came to mind for a very long time. So at that time, when you were, when you dove into politics, can you recall what the state of the country was at that time, and basically what your mind frame was going into politics as it relates to what you could do to improve it?
Right.
Not improve politics, to improve the country. Right? Well, politics too.
Right.
If that was on your mind.
But Amali, this would have been shortly after independence as well, right?
Right. No, 89 was shortly after independence of
yeah.
83.
So we were a new country.
Basically,
Yeah.
new country. That is correct. New country.
So obviously you had plans, you had intentions.
Yeah, because I must say that there were certain things that you wanted to see improve.
Right.
I mean, we were a country, a monocrop economy, sugar, agriculture. The young people in my community, and if you didn't get it academically, you went into the sugar industry. Or young ladies would go on the industrial estate, So definitely that was not sustainable for a modern young man growing up and want to see something different. We definitely, the infrastructure of the country needed to be improved. One of the things that agitated me a lot during the time when I was there in opposition was the Island Main Road was resurfaced, but it did not come through my constituency. Resurface it. Yeah, that is a fact. I guess there were good reasons because this is a matter I ventilated at the national level. And in fact, at the regional level, I had to write to the president of the Caribbean Development Bank and say, hey, what's going on here? Is this discrimination or what? And constituency number 7 and number 6, which were then basically labor constituencies, so to speak, we did not have the benefit of the Island Main Road.
So the main road went around the island, stopped in St. Paul's, and it was done
No, it stopped. It stopped, I think, must have been outside Kevon or somewhere like that. It didn't get into number 7, and it continued.
And then it was done between number 7 and around to the west side?
Right.
Wow.
So it stopped in at the end of number 8, which is Kevon, basically, and then we started in Sandy Point. So we were excluded. Now I said there might have been very good reasons given, but for me, a young politician, that was fodder. And so I agitated around that because that was part of the discrimination that we were speaking about, that one set of people were being left, one set of people was being left out, and another set was being carried forward. You could not develop a country like that. Yes, we were recently independent, but independence is for all, for everybody. And so that was one of the points of agitation. I mentioned that because I was speaking about the infrastructure, poor roads, electricity difficult, water difficult to access. Don't talk about housing. For 15 years that the previous administration was there, not one house was built in my constituency, which at that time was being considered the poorest of all constituencies. So you must imagine how I felt.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, that drove me politically. And I would say the economy, of course, as I said, was sugar economy. Very little diversification. We had the embryonic start of the tourist industry. You had the Cricket Bay development, basically. There was an attempt with Holiday Inn in Fort Lands, which is Fort Thomas Hotel, which was managed by Holiday Inn. That was basically almost non-functional. So that's what we had. That was the extent of our tourism development. Okay. The industrial estate had started to become quite active and alive because Sir Paul Southwell, before he had died, had already established the foundation for manufacturing, light enclave manufacturing. So what was the economy like? It was sugar agriculture, a little sprinkling of manufacturing, apart from sugar and exporting sugar. You had basically very little international financial services. Nevis, of course, was doing exceptionally well at that time in international financial services sector with Sim Daniel. But apart from that, the hotel, embryonic, manufacturing, just going sugar, that was basically all. You had cable and wireless here, the only telecom service provider that was not helping in the development of the country. We needed to make change. We needed to tackle some of the fundamentals that would create a modern, diversified economy that was linked globally to the international economy. That's the kind of vision that one was seeing.
Okay. And that was quite, a good description of what the economy, what the nation looked like in 89. So now let's talk about the progress that the country has made between 89 and 2020. How would you rate our progress on a scale of 1 to 10?
I think...
and secondly, it's a two-part question. Yeah. And secondly, do you feel that you accomplished what you wanted to accomplish in terms of improving St. Kitts and Nevis in your tenure as, the PM and leader of our country?
I think so. I think I have assisted in moving forward on the vision that I shared and the vision that people of this country shared at that time. Country was young, as you said, moving out of independence further to become a truly independent country. One of the things I didn't mention was the education situation in terms of the opportunities to go further afield for the education and so forth. That was very, very limited, and that was one of the areas that I thought it was absolutely necessary to look at. In '89, I believe, when we got independence, we would have made a serious start. I think it was important that we understand why it was critical that we took that decision at that time. Because I would say that, as we say, the father of our nation is really Sir Robert, because they had put in place, that earlier Labour team, they had put in place what I believe would have been all of the tenets for independence.
Okay.
You know, there was a lot of opposition, but I think the Labour guys of those days knew exactly what they wanted. I listened to the clip on the 16th, that is on Wednesday, National Heroes Day, at our ceremony to mark National Heroes Day in St. Paul's for all of the national heroes. And in that clip, Robert Llewellyn Bradshaw was basically saying that on the 2nd of March, 1976, he was going to start negotiations with the British government for independence.
That was in 76.
76. Just imagine that. So in 1976, he was certain that the foundation and the groundwork was already being put in place for independence. There were a lot of distractions. You can read about that later on. The Anguilla situation, opposition in Nevis, etc., etc. But at that time, he had placed in the country certain very important economic pillars. One, the cruise pier was already there. The international airport was under construction, basically. He had, to some extent, built the national group of companies, the National Bank, National Insurance, National Trust. So a lot of these were being put in place in 1976. So when we went eventually in 1989, simply because of a lot of distractions with the British and Anguilla and so forth, it was really time for us to achieve independence. So I think Sir Kennedy did the right thing in moving forward at that particular time, because there was no need, even though there were political distractions and they were saying they opposed it and so forth at that time. It was politics. But I think any modern person, especially like Sir Kennedy, who is a modern person then, trained, etc., professional, knew that we had to move into independence. So from there, I believe a number of things were started. But given the conditions of the day and the politics of the day, if you don't have enough money, as they would say, you look after your picnic first, isn't it? So we, some of us, some of the persons of this country, citizens, we believe very strongly were being treated as second class. So that was one of the fundamental issues that I had. We did not have proper treatment of everybody. We felt very strongly that if you were labor, you were going to be left out. In fact, I was in a meeting last night, and I was being told by the president of the trade union that in a public meeting he heard at Warner Park himself, his own ears, there was Michael Oliver Powell saying it hurt his heart to see labor people walking and eating. I mean, that is the extent to which the division was. And we couldn't continue like that. So one of the things I fought in the 1993 and 95 elections was that we needed to bring equality to the people of this country. We had moved far away from the colonial days. We were all now Kittitians and Nevisians, and we needed to be given fair opportunities to move forward in all of the social areas and building a modern economy for St. Kitts and Nevis. And I think that is where we were, that drove me to a large extent to hammer home, so that back 1989, when I became the leader of the party, We had the elections in 1993. It was undecided to some extent. We had a 4-4 situation in St. Kitts, and Nevis had a 2-1 situation. It was a minority government, and we agitated to bring that to an end. It came to an end in 1995, and so we took over. So between 83 and 95, I think we were on our way to build on that new nation called St. Kitts and Nevis. I would say that Sir Kennedy would have done his part, but I believe that somehow he had lost his way, and it was time for us to move beyond that. So the era of labor, new labor at that time, started with my opportunity to lead the country.
Okay.
And just as I mentioned, the areas of great concern, these were the areas that we began to tackle. The economy. We had to ensure that the economy was properly diversified, at least at the start. And we had so many challenges. In the first 10 years, about no less than 5 devastating hurricanes. The cruise pier that had just been, well, when I took office, it was under construction. Dr. Kennedy had brought that. It was under construction. It was completed under us. But hurricane destroyed it. It had to be rebuilt. And in rebuilding it, you had to redesign it. When you look at the housing stock and the infrastructure that was destroyed by these massive hurricanes, no less than $900 million it cost us to try to rebuild some of the housing stock and the infrastructure. Our airport, I remember it was out of commission for a while. Luckily, in Montserrat, the air terminal structure that was not being used, it was brought here to help to guide aircrafts landing here and so forth. Basically, our housing totally devastated. New codes had to be brought into the picture with the assistance of international organizations, USAID and the European Union and so forth. So we then started on a massive housing development program. To a large extent, fueled by the hurricane and the need to rebuild, but also it was part of our own policy. Back in 1996, 1 year after taking office, we passed the appropriate act in Parliament that allowed land distribution. You see, 1995, we still had the sugar industry. A lot of the lands were still under sugarcane cultivation. We said we will give it a trial for 10 years, which we did. And that is why we had to close it in 2004, 2005, or thereabout, because after 10 years in government and trying to resuscitate it, it failed. So we now needed to have the sugar lands distributed to the people. Remember, Bradshaw had nationalized the sugar industry. 75, I think it was, bought the sugar lands from the planters, and 2 years after, he bought the factory itself. So the entire economy thrust, the driver of the economy was in the hands of the people. That is something that we must never forget. Bradshaw took control for the benefit of the people, the sugar industry, which was the driver of the economy. In other words, it had to be in the people's hands. That is why I said in 76, he was confident that we would advance towards independence. The driver of the economy was now in the hands of the people. You want anything else better than that? What drives the economy is now owned by the people. And as a result of that, he was confident we would succeed at independence. But let me get back to that. The housing stock is what I think is a major contributor to social development, and we made an impact on that. Over 5,000 houses.
I was supposed to ask that, yeah.
Oh, yes. Well, over 5,000 houses compared to...
Built between 95 and 2015.
2015, compared to 250 built in 15 years by the former administration. I give these statistics just for the comfort of knowing where we were, you see, not criticizing anything. So it is important that housing in particular, job opportunities, the diversification of the economy. So here was sugar. We had to bring it to an end. What do? Services, tourism in particular, hospitality and tourism sector. That was to become a driver of the new economy. Of course, we had, as I said, diversified, we broke the monopoly, I would say, with regard to cable and wireless. It was a regional thrust. Sinkits is one of those that led the way under former Minister Liburd, Cedric Liburd. One of his own drivers was to get that going, to help to diversify. The international financial services sector, Nevis was already there, saying it was saying where we can't depend on agriculture, that is going to go, that is sugar. And so we revamped all of the laws pertaining to the financial services sector, international financial services sector. And of course, that was driven by the international community. The OECD countries determined that we were serious competitors. And they used the reason that we were bringing illicit actors and so forth, and money laundering and so forth, into these countries as tax havens. But nevertheless, we restructured, brought modern international regulatory laws to ensure that we will get our share of this international financial services sector, which was being adopted by several other countries in the Caribbean region. And so we went that way. Telecoms, banking, international financial services generally, diversified agriculture, that is still embryonic, still needs to be driven. That's an area for the future. But at that time, we started to increase our food crop production, paid greater attention to the livestock, poultry, etc. We began to develop those things. And that basically was what we would be in the economy. I mentioned housing, education. Education was critical. There was Cuba offering scholarships to bring professional training to our people in several areas, in medicine, economics, several areas of training, architecture, and so forth. And we decided we would go with that. So we sent a lot of our students off to Cuba, mainly because the UE situation was good. I'm UE trained, but it was costly.
Right.
Cuba was doing something good for the people of the Caribbean and Latin America, and we said we wanted to be part of that. Put the politics aside. We're not communists, but if a communist country is offering you the development for your people, resources to develop your people, and opportunities are being provided, grab it. So I did, and our country moved forward positively. In fact, one of the things I was looking at just the other day is that I understand in my own constituency, when you look at the per capita doctors trained, it's highest in constituency number 6.
Really?
I'm telling you. A lot of our people went into medicine.
Wow.
These were people moving from being the children of sugarcane workers today.
And being neglected.
And being neglected.
Yeah.
And today are the leaders professionally in health and medical care in our country. So the new hospital had to be rebuilt. I'm just jumping from education to healthcare now. New hospital had to be rebuilt after the hurricanes. We needed to professionalize again the nursing sector. They had to bring modern services to the hospital, hemodialysis, which was not there before. We had to make sure that the lab was seriously improved with modern equipment, detecting serious threatening diseases like hepatitis in its various forms. And so, you know, the idea was not only to rebuild the economy, make it modern, making sure that it was interlinked with the global economy, but having it diversified, maintaining the manufacturing enclave edge that we had in the whole Eastern Caribbean. Today, I think we are one of the few countries that still produce in a manufacturing enclave and send off critically important pieces of equipment to Europe and North America. I understand that if you walked into a cardiac surgery theater, some of the sensors that you have there made in St. Kitts and Nevis. And those people down in Sandy Point, Howard Server Control, also producing, we understand, some of the basic equipment that are now using our respirators in order to tackle the COVID-19 pandemic that we have. So we are doing something, impacting the rest of the world, linking the economy here with the globalized economy. The ladies on the industrial estate, they are not just people who are dropouts. They are making a tangible contribution with the skills that they have acquired. And that is why the manufacturing sector has been maintained. I think it should be given support for it to continue to flourish and expand here, especially after COVID-19. A lot of the factories are going to return to North America, and they're going to come here looking for the ease of doing business and manufacturing. So, I mean, what else have I left out? Tell me.
Education, healthcare, manufacturing, tourism.
Right. Sports.
Yes, we did touch on sports.
Sports development. This is an area, again, that a lot is there for the future. If I were there, we would have been going into a new direction. We wanted to make sure that the activities of young people, broadcasting, entertainment, this is your guys' field, that would be pushed to the highest level. And I'm pleased that it seems as though we're going to go in that direction. Sports, entertainment, these activities which are pursued by young people using their intellectual capacity and their creativity and their innovation to make sure that they can carve out for themselves their own economic activities, their own niche markets, etc., for their own economic activities. To a large extent, I believe, therefore, that the country was placed in the right direction by the time I left in 2015. I believe that we had achieved a lot. The economy was in fact changed. It was put on a growth path for prosperity. The debt situation, a lot of which was incurred as a result of the hurricanes and continuing to support a dying sugar industry. That debt situation, which was created, I am proud to say today that by 2014, we had tackled that particular situation. A lot of people criticized us in 2010 when we negotiated with the IMF. We could not sustain the high debt level that there was. 130% of GDP. That's high. 130%. It means that a lot of what you were receiving as your revenue had to be going out to pay debt. We said that was unsustainable. And we could not have corrected it without assistance from abroad. That's why the IMF came in. We had our own homegrown debt restructuring program. Homegrown. We directed it. We created it. All we had was an $84 million standby agreement with the IMF. Because a lot of that debt was with the National Bank. It was the commercial bank, especially the National Bank, and some of the banks in the region. We wanted, as a safety net, to make sure that if people began to run on the bank, then we would have the IMF $84 million standby facility to ensure that the bank did not collapse. God was good with us because never ever came close to that. That is why we were paying back before we left office. A lot of the unused money that was put to our facility as a safety facility in order to restructure our debt and, of course, to put the country on a new economic path, a new trajectory for growth, wealth creation, and development. I want to use this, before I move, I want to use the opportunity, because a lot of people don't understand how it was done. But I want to use the opportunity to commend those in the Ministry of Finance. It wasn't me. It wasn't even my government. The people who created the opportunity to swing the economy from a debt-ridden economy to one of growth and prosperity are the financial people. We had Wendell Lawrence, to some extent, laid the foundation, Ambassador Lawrence, financial secretary, then he left. But there came in Janet Harris, financial secretary, together with Hillary Hazel, who was Sustainable Development PS. And then, when Janet went off to the World Bank to further her experience, then Hillary became the financial secretary. We are grateful to all of them for the tremendous work. And Calvin Edwards, because he was deputy to both since under Wendell's time, there during Janet's time, also under Hillary's time. We want to commend all of them for what they did, because without them, the country would have been completely different.
Interesting.
Yes. Growth, when we left office, growth was 7% and so forth. $900 million in our treasury. SIDF, don't talk about the role that the restructured Citizenship by Investment program performed to change the economic landscape and the fiscal situation for us here in St. Kitts and Nevis. I am proud of what has been achieved, and those people in the Ministry of Finance, I am sure, Wendell, Janet, Hillary, Calvin, and others, Mr. Bradshaw in the Treasury, all of them, we must remember them because of the serious intellectual application that went into the creation of the homegrown debt restructuring exercise and the arrangement that was put in place with the IMF to oversee that. 60% of GDP was the target. 60% of GDP was the target for our debt to be achieved by 2020. We have achieved that. Not by 2020, by, where we are today, 2020. Well, we would have achieved that since 5-6 years ago. When I left office, the debt situation was 73% of GDP, and it was on a trajectory to be 60% by 2020. We were the first country in the world, I think, to have repaid the IMF debt. They lent us money by the facility, the standby facility. We repaid it because we never used it. That is what I think is the modern state of affairs in our country.
It seems as though what you have been speaking to is diversification and development over the past years since independence.
Yes.
And you spoke briefly about some of the areas that are still embryonic, as you said, and also some that you feel that we could go into.
Good.
Where are some of these areas you see the country being able to develop and become leaders that we have in so many other sectors? What are some of these areas you see us moving into over the upcoming years?
Right. I believe that, firstly, agriculture. We had seen and pictured agriculture as the new diversified sector. that was going to be a leading productive sector in our future. And don't be offended if I speak of the marijuana situation. There are opportunities to bring our diversified agricultural sector in line to compete with any modern country if we were to only follow our plans and do something about the potential of the marijuana industry as part of our agricultural diversification strategy. That area, agriculture, and it's no longer agriculture where you have to use 10 acres of land to produce food for your people. I saw something on CNN, they have a program every morning, they feature some achievements of the people around the world. And there was this facility where from 1/10 of an acre, they are able to produce in a vertical
fashion, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I follow
food
it too, yeah.
to feed thousands of people in the United States of America. Why can't we do that here? All it takes is creativity and innovation, the very buzzwords that we're using today. That is all it takes. Hydroponics and so forth. Why can't we produce more food, cheaper food for ourselves? You know what COVID would have taught us? Begin to grow your own food. Suppose the ships and planes couldn't come in, what the hell we will do? Stop? So we have to make sure that we get into agriculture in a meaningful way. Yes. We talk about food security, buzzwords, make it real. And St. Kitts really has the potential for that. We have young people. Most of our young people would have gone through secondary education. Where in the world do you find that happening? Where the majority of your young people would have had a secondary education. Very few countries. We have people here with brains, young people. Let us put them to work. Let us create the opportunities for them to make their impact and sustain our independence, not just political independence, but economic independence as well. So agricultural sector is one of those. I really believe that the application of new technology. I mentioned a while ago the music industry, sports, entertainment generally. I believe that we should be able, through our introduction to computer science, with the introduction of the one-to-one laptop program, which we gave to every secondary school student, we believe that that needs to be harnessed. The effect, the productive effect of that should be harnessed. It is our duty to put the curriculum in place in our schools and also the post-secondary school programs to enhance our young people creating their own apps and so forth and using this new technology to improve living conditions of our people. These are some of the areas I believe we need to invest in now in this new era that is being ushered in during this phase of us as an independent nation. Opportunities are there. And if they are not there, we must create them. Find them and create them. Find the ways of creating them.
So we spoke about, where St. Kitts was, St. Kitts and Nevis, where St. Kitts and Nevis was as far back as 1976, when you said, the Premier made the first announcement that he would be moving towards independence. To 89, where he took over leadership of the party. What the vision was for the country in terms of improving housing, infrastructure, education, healthcare. And then we spoke about where we are now. And, you've mentioned that you're quite pleased with the progress that we've made as a nation. And then most recently, we discussed where you see the country going in terms of improvements, 2020 onward. So where do you see yourself fitting into
always.
Where the country is going in the next 10, 20 years. What role do you wish to play?
I wish to play, I would say, an advisory role. I want to use the experience that I've had over the years to rebuild our party. Party is part of the society. I believe that labor really is good for St. Kitts and Nevis. And so the next gen SKN concept that was created during the last election, it has to be taken to the next level. There are young, capable people in our party who are in the leadership who can carry us forward. So I really believe that my role, as I had said during the campaign, whether people believe me or not, it seems as though they didn't believe me.
When you say that,
Well, they didn't vote for us, it would appear. I know that there were serious challenges with regard to the poll, and the courts will determine those things.
Yeah.
But I would say the reality is that they did not vote for us.
Right.
So, go back to the joint board. Let us see, therefore, what role I can play. In coming back to the joint board, create the new scenarios, the training and so forth for our people to be ready at the Labour Party level. We want to make sure that we are a party for all of the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, not just some. Remember what I told you, 1989, when I came in, I was really upset because it looked as if only one set of people should live. I want everybody to live. There was a time my own party in 2010 and so forth, they would say about Douglas is a PAM. Douglas is looking after PAM people. But my pledge is to look after everybody. And that is how our party should be. It should be nationalistic in its appeal and its offering to advance our country. So I want to continue to be engaged because I ain't going nowhere. I stay in here. So in staying here, I want to make sure that I can live properly here. I'm here to give advice, to give my own commentaries if I have to, not with any ill will, but just for the good of our country. Remember, the party's motto, for the good that we can do. That is the motto of the Labour Party. And so I want to live to that. I want to train people. There are young people who are there. They mean well for our country, for our people, and they should be given the chance, definitely, by the people to advance and go forward. So that is what I think my role will be. And to live up, I have a foundation that I'm creating, the Douglas Global Lifestyle Foundation. I want to work through that to impact on people's livelihoods, especially at the community and, of course, at the national level, with a global appeal to help to sustain it and ensure that it can carry out its role and responsibility here in St. Kitts and Nevis.
and I think that's a good legacy to leave behind. You know, coming from, a young doctor in the 80s, into politics on a smaller level, in the late 70s, and then into actual leadership in 89, taking the country from where it was back in those days to where it is now. You left it in 2015, and then now to leave behind a legacy of helping to rebuild your party and to empower the young people in the Labour Party to go to higher heights. And hopefully, I'm sure you're hoping that they contest the next election and emerge successful.
Of course, of course.
but what I was hearing was a real sense of hope when he spoke just now, and faith in the ability of the party to move forward, strength to strength.
It will come back, trust me.
Next election?
Why not?
Well, I'm asking you why not?
It will come back by next election.
I have no idea what y'all are doing, so I can't.
I'm telling you, it's going to come back by next election. It's going to come back.
All right.
I want to say, just before you close, a word about Nevis, because I didn't say much about Nevis. Again, part of what I think should be the legacy is ensuring that the relationship between St. Kitts and Nevis continues to improve. It has improved tremendously from the days when we were about to get into independence. That's one of the reasons why Bacha never saw independence, because there's so many conflicts, Anguilla and the Nevis situation. And so I believe that we have matured tremendously.
I was going to
over
ask
the
about
years.
that, yes.
I have had relationship with Nevis, I've had relationship with Parry, relationship with Amory, was a little closer with Mr. Parry, because we worked together, Patrice Nisbet, the Attorney General, and two of the administrations that I led. So Nevis definitely, I think, has to be factored in every way. There seem to be some tense moments now, don't know what will happen, but again, citizenship program, which has been a very important vehicle for our development. Nevis is saying it should have its share. I think that is correct. So we'll see what happens. The whole idea is that St. Kitts and Nevis, I believe we are one. And when the secession attempt was made back in what, 97, I think it was, they said that I caused Nevis not to go. But it is not that I caused Nevis not to go. The people voted in a particular way. And I believe still that we don't have to be two separate countries if we can be one country working together and living well. That is what I aim for, and that is what I would hope for in our future as a country.
And to accomplish that, we spoke to Mark Bradley yesterday.
Okay.
And we touched this topic as well. And I think all of us agreed that to accomplish that would require a huge sense of political maturity on all sides, Labour, PAM, PLP, NRP, CCM, and all the others in between, to actually attempt to put the bad blood between St. Kitts and Nevis, behind them, and the bad blood between the parties behind them as well, because there's lots of bad blood, and their hurt feelings and their emotions, and their bruised egos, some would say even some betrayals. But do you believe that the next gen SKN, whoever that team would be, is going to put that behind them in the interest of the country, or are they still holding on to? And I would ask any party the same questions. It's not just about Labour, right? Or will they be holding on to things of the past? Because I believe that is a huge hindrance to progress and development.
Well, I think the things of the past should only assist us in developing the relationship that would last in the future. Because if you look back, we're not going to go further. We need to just look forward, let the past be invigorated, all the new thoughts of building and moving forward. St. Kitts and Nevis, I really believe the people are so closely integrated that it would be a difficult situation, for us to govern independently. But again, the wish of the people is what it will be. I hope that our people would see the benefit of staying together. I really think and I know that the next gen SKN, Labour Party, that it is going to pursue full integration among the people of St. Kitts and Nevis and the two islands and the two governments, integrating in every way and collaborating in every way that is possible. It has been done in the past, can be done in the future.
Okay, well said. Dr. Douglas, we've run out of time. We've actually gone overtime as usual. You have no behavior in here.
Frequent rebels,
Thank you, guys. Thank you very, very, very
well,
much.
thank you for being with us.
Yes.
It was an informative conversation. Learned a lot. And we do wish you all the best in your future endeavors, and we do hope that you impart some of that vast knowledge on the new Labour administration, Labour team, sorry, in administration yet. The new Labour team, hopefully, the new Labour team, very, very soon. So thank you very much, and we're very happy to have you.
Okay, thank you too.
All right.
Bye.
So that brings us to the end of this episode of
Thank you,
Island Tea.
guys.
Yes.
All right.
Come
All
on.
right. Social distance.
Yeah.
Yes.
With your faves,
Alright.
Kevon and Amali. It's the weekend. Thank God it's Friday. Drive safely, don't drink and drive, and don't forget.
You can't be everybody's cup of tea because you is not a mug.